Alrighty, so on this episode of Chloe Tan tries to find cool and edgy places to put a camera because shooting is a real issue, I really wanted to get this video out quickly for you guys. I know some of you are pretty anxious about the UK application process, so I wanted to get out as much information as possible. Get down to that good tea. I was accepted on January 10th, 2018 by Hartford College for Oxford for the program PPE, which stands for Philosophy, Politics and Economics. Now, previously, a couple months before, I was also rejected by LSE, which is the London School of Economics. The reason being very simple. I will insert my rejection letter right here because that always gives me a confidence boost. Essentially, though, the tea is that my application was not actually considered, but it was more because of the fact that I didn't meet the application requirements. I think out of all of the programs that I researched, the PPE program in LSE was definitely the most different. For one, it's 4 years instead of 3 years, and you focus on all 3 subjects equally. Well, for example, in Oxford, you focus on 2 subjects, I believe, after the first year, or after the second year. I think it's after the first year. But for LSE, you focus on all 3 until the very last year, where you are allowed to concentrate on a couple a little bit more. So given that, they have a very strange system of stating preferred subjects. So first of all, I'm an IB student. It stands for International Baccalaureate in high school. These were my IB subjects. Now, if you look on the LSE website, and I'll link this down below, they have a list of preferred subjects and a list of applied subjects, or basically subjects they prefer and subjects they don't prefer. Now, the policy is that for A-levels, at least 2 out of your 3 A-levels have to be preferred subjects. So, applied to IB, what they told me, specifically this part, overall IB subjects didn't fulfill their number of preferred subjects because my language wasn't considered a preferred subject. It's all a very confusing process, right? Furthermore, it's also really important to note that PPE at LSE at least, requires IB-HL mathematics. Now, I have an IBSM mathematics, but I also have a 5 in AP Calculus BC. I thought the combination of the 2 potentially would be able to make up for it. I have heard of some success story of someone being able to do that. So that's what I attempted to do. Apparently, it didn't go down too well. I will never know if it actually didn't work, but that is apparently the case, so I'm just giving that info to you guys. So if you do want to have a feasible shot at LSE PPE, I would say, if you take IB, take HL mathematics and do your research as to what your other IB subjects are in order to maximize your chances. Otherwise, you might be better off picking another major for LSE. So I did try to change my major after I realized that my application requirements actually may not fulfill the LSE ones. So I actually went online to research this, and I told them, okay, is it possible for me to change my major? This was very early on in the process. I had just submitted my app, and they were like, yes, you can change your major, but then you will not be able to resubmit your personal statement. So meaning your personal statement would be the current one. So I thought about it for a bit, and in the end, I don't think I changed my major, and so this happened. There's another little story about LSE. It didn't happen to me, so this is to some degree hearsay, so take this with a grain of salt. But I have a friend-ish, I have an acquaintance who also got into Oxford PPE a couple years before me, and he was rejected by LSE PPE, and he met all of the requirements. The reason being, after having self-assessed himself, he told me that the reason was because he didn't focus enough on philosophy in his LSE personal statement. So in his personal statement, if you have read my personal statement, you will see that I had a very pronounced focus on politics. I had a whole paragraph to it, while economics and philosophy were kind of meshed into one paragraph. So my recommendation for you is that if you are applying to LSE PPE, perhaps equally balance the 3, or to make sure to emphasize each individual subject and then talk about how these 3 mesh together. My approach was I'll talk about politics, and then I'll talk about economics and philosophy together, and then I'll talk about all of them kind of mishmash at the end. This definitely worked for Oxford because I got in, but it may or may not have worked for LSE. I will never really know, but that is something to keep in mind. So I know this is a little bit of a short video, it's more of a story time, but I hope it was useful. This is my personal experience. I didn't really want to stick it in the end of some other video, so I decided to make a short individual one about it. I still have around 8 videos, I think, related to Oxford that are still pending. I'm still waiting to shoot them, and those will be shot in a more tame indoor environment. This one just happens to be in the outdoors.